Illnesses that are even greater than just cancer. People are dying from respiratory disease, from autoimmune disease, are afflicted with intense asthma. We know that people like this picture that is here of Grandma and the baby. Can you say Grandma and the baby? And we say, save Grandma and the baby. In this picture is a representation of Grandma sitting on her porch with a baby that may be her grandchild, could be anybody's child. But it is a child that is being hurt, being polluted, being contaminated by the petrochemical industries that are behind her home, and indeed not only behind her home, but surrounding her entire environment, that is making it almost impossible for her to live, that is indeed taking her life, albeit slowly, each and every day, taking days off of her life because of the greed of these petrochemical industries that are in that area. Grandma and the baby are being murdered right now as we speak. This is a realistic picture of many homes that are in this area and along the river. Thank you. And so we want to put that image before you. And not only do we want to put it before you, we want to put it before the governor. We want to put it before LDEQ. We want to put it before everybody so that they know this image is sad. This image is terrifying. This image needs to come to an end. And this is what we're marching for on October 15th to the 30th. And not only that, before we have our panelists get up, let me say this. We're talking about environment. And when we talk about environment, the definition of environment is the conditions or surroundings that a person, plant, or animal live in. And so when we talk about conditions that we're living in, the environment is impacted by just more than what's going on in the atmosphere or what's going on in the air, more than just the pollutants that are going on in St. John and St. James Parish. The condition of the environment is impacted by your high-priced sewage and water board bill. Your condition is being threatened in which you live. Indeed, your environment is being threatened. Your very life is being threatened by things like sewage and water board, by the gas plant in New Orleans East. The environment in which you live is being threatened by the lack of education being given to our children by charter schools. The conditions of the surroundings of the environment in which you live is being threatened by because of what's happening to people that live in Gordon Plaza. Your environment is being threatened because of what's happening to our children in the criminal justice system. All of our environments are being threatened. All of our lives are being threatened. We need to stop narrowly defining environment and expand the definition of environment. Each day our environment is being threatened. Anyone who owns a house and those even who rent, your environment is being threatened by the taxes, property taxes are going up every year for no reason at all. Your environment is being threatened so that your life is being snatched away from you each and every day. And so it is time for us to stand up and say we deserve to live. Not only the 1% who hold 80% of the money deserve to live, we deserve to live. And so, that children sometimes are impacted by this condition called failure to thrive. And I believe that many of us are also impacted by that same condition, that we fail to thrive. And so I believe that we need to be healed of that and say we're going to start thriving again. And by thriving, we're going to get out in front of people. We're going to stand in front of City Hall and demand our rights, that we deserve to live. We deserve to live in a safe environment that is not killing us and being taken away from us and detracting from us and stealing from us. We deserve to live. We're going to stand in front of the gas plant in New Orleans East and say we deserve to live. We're going to stand in Gordon Plaza and say these people deserve to live. Mayor, do something about it. Get these folks out of here. You built their homes on toxic land. They deserve to live. And so that's what we're marching for, October 15th through the 30th. And so if people ask, well, why y'all just so, I heard someone say to me today, they said, Justin Beyond is only about, it's just so keyed in on environmental issues. And what they meant was environmental issues like this. But I had to go back and express to them that environment is more than just this. Environment is every condition that we are forced to live in that isn't right, that's deteriorating and stealing from us and not allowing us to live our best life. That's the environment. And so we've got to get away from just this definition. Now, this one is what we're going to talk about a little bit tonight. But it's more than just a toxified environment than this in St. John and St. James Parish. If you got it, say, I got it, Pastor. All right. We're going to deal with that and continue to work out that definition of environment and expand upon it. So with no further ado, I want to invite Sharon Lavigne of St. James, Arise St. James, to come forward and come to the stage. And also Mr. Robert Taylor of Concerned Citizens of St. John Parish to come up. We're going to have a little discussion, and they're going to tell us about the need and what we're going to be doing as we march. Please give them a round of applause as they come. These are soldiers right here, tireless workers for the greater good of many, many people, and we so much appreciate them and the work they continually do. And so we want to learn more about them and their work, and ultimately we want you all to join us on the road when we begin to march on the 15th. On the 16th we'll have a rally at my church. 15th we'll have another rally at another church. You know what that church is? Church of New Orleans on the 15th. And then on the 16th we'll have it at my church in Broadmoor. And then you'll get a full schedule soon. But we want to talk to Mr. Robert and Miss Sharon tonight, and Miss Sharon, if you would begin, tell us about Rise St. James and how Rise St. James came about. What motivated your passion in beginning Rise St. James? Let me introduce both of you first. So if you just tell us your names, as I already did, but tell us whatever you want to tell us about yourself in about 2 minutes, and then we'll have you go into a discussion about Rise St. James. So just give us a brief introduction about you.
Okay, I'm from St. James Parish.
Speak loud.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Use your on the road marching voice.
Yes, my name is Sharon Lavigne. I'm from St. James Parish. And I started Rise last year, 2018, October the 20th. It's going to be our first anniversary this year. When I started Rise, Beverly can tell you, I had the first meeting at my house. We had 10 people, and Beverly was one of them. Miss Geraldine was another one, but she passed away recently. And we started it because when they told me that Formosa was coming, not even a mile and a half from my home, that's when something sparked in me. I said, we already bombarded with 12 industry in the 5th district within a 10-mile radius. And one more probably would kill us all. We already had people dying from cancer and other ailments. They were dying so fast, but we didn't know why they were dying until my daughter and I went back to look at some of the records from the courthouse, and we found out that in 2014, our parish councilman and other people voted to make where I live, industrial, future industrial. We didn't know that. We found it out last year in 2018. That's when we started to work. We started to find out what we could do to stop this industry. We started going to the Parish Council meetings. We gave our first march on November 3rd, and you all came. And it was a success. And then after that, we've been going ever since. And we've been fighting. We're still fighting. So I retired this year, October 3rd, so I can continue to fight. And I'll have more time. I tried to do the work while I was at work, and it was hard. I didn't get any rest. I didn't get any sleep. I didn't get anything but tiredness. but I learned a whole lot. I learned a lot about the parish council and the crooks that's trying to do all these things to us. They don't even ask the citizens. They just ask the parish council and the parish president, and they vote everything in. And since they made our town future industrial, that means that we are a site for these chemical plants to come in. One map that the parish council has, they don't have people living there. And that's where I live. And that's why we're trying to fight it. We're going to do whatever it takes to keep Formosa away from us. Because Formosa, inside that plant, they have 14 smaller plants inside the big plant. So we're not going to be able to survive with the toxin and all these chemicals that they're putting in the river. So with the help of God, we're going to work it out, and we're going to stop Formosa.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Sharon. We believe that we are going to stop Formosa. Mr. Robert, would you tell us about your organization, the origin of it, and how you got involved in this work?
Yeah, certainly. In midsummer of 2016, the Environmental Protection Agency called emergency meetings in our parish. It lucked up how I found out about the meeting, because I have a good friend. I have a good friend who is a friend of one of the councilmen, and because they did not advertise to the public that EPA called these meetings. But the guy called me and said, look, man, I was invited to this meeting, but they do not want the people there to come to the meeting. They're not telling anybody. In any case, I called my pastor, and we wound up at the meeting. That was the public meeting. EPA held two meetings. They held a meeting for the government officials at 2 p.m. that evening, that afternoon. And at 6 p.m., they held a general public meeting. That meeting was very well attended, but there were only about 6 people from regular parishioners from St. John the Baptist Parish that were there. The people that were there were people from organizations around the state and the country that knew about it, but they kept it away from the local people. In any case, that's when we were advised that EPA had declared us a very dangerous parish. They did a plat map which showed us red from parish line to parish line. That red represented unhealthy levels of the chemical chloroprene that is emitted by this plant. And there's no place in St. John the Baptist Parish that has a safe level of chloroprene. No place, and it's that way till this day. In the area where I live, which is really where the plant is, in reserve, they say the plow, but the plant is 1,500 feet from our elementary school. As a result of that meeting, I met some people from Louisiana Environmental Action Network, and they promised they would help us to get that information off the website and disseminate it. And the first readings that came back were so frightening to me, because it showed the areas I live in as being 400 to 500 to 600 times the level that is considered safe. And what really frightened us was this elementary school with 500 children from kindergarten to 5th grade. And that school they were sitting in every day was being bombarded from 700 up to 700, 400 to 700 times the safe limit. We discovered this in mid-June of 2016. And when we got that information, that's when I called a meeting, my pastor and I, and one of the local elected officials, Mr. Sarapu, to talk about this at the church. And out of that came concerned citizens, because the people were very upset who lived right here, whose school was, it's right in our community. So that meant the people that lived there 24 hours a day were getting that. And 50% of the children in that school lived in that community as well. And that's what prompted the people to form this organization. And we have since been fighting with these elected officials. And as Sharon said, I learned a lot in the last 3 years about the plight of poor and working people, and especially peoples of color in the state of Louisiana. And in the parish in which I live, which is a majority black parish, every parish official in St. John the Baptist Parish is black. We got 9 councilmatic districts. 5 of them are black. Those 5 are south of Airline Highway. The significance of that is the powers that be decided to redesign the parish. They moved all white people north of Airline Highway. There's a powerful organization in St. John the Baptist Parish. The acronym, the name of it is NOAH, which is merely an acronym for North of Airline Highway. And we can see evidence of their plan because NOAH, that area comprises 20% of the land area of the parish. 80% of the parish resources goes to developing NOAH. It goes north of Airline. The people south of the airline, which is the 5 black councilmatic districts, which comprise Division 8, we have a councilman at large. We have 2, of course, the black one and the white one. Council at large A division is Councilman Larry Sarapu, and his district combines the 5 black districts. All of the chemical plants in St. John the Baptist Parish, every last one of them sits in those 5 districts.
Mr. Robin, let me pause there. Let me just go back to the Sharon for a moment, and we'll come back to you, and we're just going to bounce this back to both of you. But let me say this as well. Listen, if you have a question for either Ms. Sharon Lavigne or Mr. Robert Taylor, please write it down on one of those index cards. Drop it in the bucket. It will get to us, or you can hand it directly to the moderator's table. If you want to ask your question for yourself, then write your name at the top of that index card as you continue to write out your question on it. But write your name if you want us to call on you. If you don't want us to call on you, just write it out legibly so that we can read it. And if you ask it yourself, know that you have about 90 seconds to ask that question, all right? So back to both of you. Can you tell us what kind of help have you gotten? And Mr. Taylor, you mentioned government officials, council people. How has LDQ or the governor or any council people, how have they recognized the plight of St. John and St. James Parish and responded to it? Have you seen any response at all?
Well, in St. James, we have only one councilman that's helping us, and his name is Clyde Cooper in the 5th District. Nobody else is helping us. LDQ won't even talk with us. The governor won't talk with us. I went to the bishop, the Catholic bishop in Baton Rouge, and we talked with him last Thursday. And he said he's going to see the governor and he's going to talk with the governor about what's going on. Because if he explains to him what's going on, he's not from Louisiana, and he don't know the parishes and everything. So we gave him a book and showed him a map. So he said he's going to ride down to St. James and see it for himself. He said he's going to, whenever he's in the company, in the presence of the bishop, of the governor, he's going to talk to him and tell him. He asked him to tell the governor not to put Formosa in St. James. So he said he's going to tell him that, but he knows if he will do it or not. But he will try. So that's about the only one that's really helping us. And my parish priest, he's trying to get on board a little bit with us to try to help us.
Thank you. Mr. Taylor, have you seen any response from any elected officials, including the governor, LDQ, and can you talk about any contact that CANA has tried to make with the governor or Mr. Chuck R. Brown of LDQ?
Our first contact with the government came as a result of actions that were being taken by our local organization. So, the things that we were disseminating, and we were getting the information from the website, and we would put that together, and we would have meetings twice monthly to disseminate that information. That's when the LDEQ decided to sick their dog on us. They sent Mr. Chuck Paul Brown to St. John the Baptist Parish at a council meeting in which when they called him up, he came up to the podium and picked up the mic, and he turned around and looked at our group. We had some red shirts with 0.2 on them. And he turned around to the council and to the people, and he said, these people here are fear mongers, they're liars, they're spreading. This is the top person appointed to regulate industry to protect us. His first movement was when he came to our community talking to the people we elected to represent us. He attacked us. My problem with that sitting council, who we elected, because the members of Concerned Citizens of St. John are from all over the parish. We represent every district, even the white districts. We had members in our group from the white district as well. He's talking to our representatives. He is supposed to be representing us, but he attacked us. And of course, we weren't on the agenda. We were not on the agenda, and the council refused to let us defend ourselves. He could get up and accuse us of all of this stuff, unfounded, fearmonger. I certainly was afraid, but I'm not a coward. See, because I wasn't going to let him, or lobby, or American Chemical, the governor. I wasn't going to let, nor were the people in my organization. We were prepared to fight them. Even when they come in here, he's the top man in DEQ. He should have been talking that way to this chemical plant that's killing us. But he attacked, and he continues to attack us in terms of the DuPont Deca chemical plant.
Would you state again what the EPA said about St. John's Parish and about the limit that should be there and how it is over the limit? State those numbers again, if you would.
Yes, the number is 0.2 micrograms per cubic meter. That's 2.2, not 1 millionth of a gram. If you can sort of imagine a gram, I think they said a quarter of a teaspoon. Divide that into a million parts. 1 million, no, 0.2 of 1 million. per cubic meter. That is some horrible stuff. 2/10 of EPA stated that in Census Tract 708, the one I live in, people there are subjected to 800 times the national average of cancer as a direct result of DuPont emitting chloroprene on us. This is what EPA stated. That wasn't the concerned citizen. And when Mr. Chuck Carl Brown comes to our school board, because we're fighting him, so he's coming now to come to the school board to present, and he did the exact same thing. Before he said anything, he attacked us at the school board. The difference there is that they had men on the school board with enough courage not to stop him. I don't think they should have allowed him, but they allowed him to do it. But then they offered us an opportunity to defend ourselves, to rebut him. That was the difference between the two organizations. Our council would not let us go against this man. As a matter of fact, when one of their members, when Larry Saraparu, who is the councilman at large, when he tried to question this man, the president of the council threatened to have him jailed. Wow. That if he continued that line of questioning, he would call the sheriff and have him thrown off the thing. Now, mind you, this councilman who was president is the council person of my district, District 3, a black man who I grew up with all my life. We elected him. But he was going to put his fellow councilman in jail just for questioning Mr. Carl Brown. But they allow him to get up, and so we got no support in those first 3 years of our fight, except for Mr. Saraparu, and I do have to commend him because he stood with us, and he did something that was anathema, that alienated him from all of the rest of the elected officials in the parish and in the state, in my estimation. He stood before the cameras with us on Channel 8 and said to the managers and owners of DuPont Chemical Company that if you cannot operate safely in our parish, then shut your plant down. Mr. Larry Saraparu. Thank you. And for any people out there in Division A that might hear this, DuPont is trying mightily to get this man put out of office. So we have to fight to keep Mr. Saraparu there.
Mr. Taylor, real quickly, we're going to go over to Ms. Sharon. Has there been any change at the school? Are children still in the school and still attending each day?
The children are still there. This year, at the beginning of school, we did something we did 3 years ago. Only this time, we had the support of CADA, because we had joined with you beautiful people. And when we went out and marched against them on that day, they were so affected by that they reached out to us and offered us a plan, which I don't think they were serious in it. And their actions, I think, have shown us that. This is a serious situation with those children. We know that those chemicals are poisoning those children if they haven't already done it. Cancers have a 10 to 20 year incubation period. And if you've taken these young children and exposing them to that level of these poisons day after day, month after month, it's a crisis situation. In 3 years, we have not changed that? Good Lord. How can these people call themselves human, let alone crook? Where is the clergy? Where are the decent people? Where are the men of the parish? Where are the parents? What is going on? It's been 3 years. We have the evidence. We see it. We've lived with it. We know about the cancers, and all of our families have been touched by this. I do not understand how all of these people could sit around, and we are still 3 years later putting those children through that. Mr. Trump, our beloved president, when he found out that Syria was gassing some children, he declared war on Syria. He went over there and bombed them to protect those Syrian children from poison gases. Chloroprene is a poison gas. EPA says it's a likely percentage, and they've proven that, and said that we should not be exposed at any levels above 0.2. And these people, Mr. Chuck Carr Brown comes and tells us that EPA don't know what they're talking about, and continues to protect this murderous chemical plant.
And so one of the things we will be protesting again and standing with St. John Parish, Concerned Citizens St. John, is to protest what's going on at DuPont Macon, and that school still being opened and those children still being gassed. Indeed, the picture that you see right there on the stage is what's happening. The grandma don't just have the baby there with her in that chair. She's got other babies that are going to school each day at Fifth Ward Elementary that are being gassed every day. And so there's children that are represented that are far beyond that picture, and those are the ones that Mr. Taylor are talking about that are indeed going out to play for PE and recess, that are dealing with asthma and other respiratory issues and cancer that, as Mr. Taylor said, has a 20-year incubation period that we won't know until 2040 when these children are being affected or will have already, God forbid, passed away. Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Ms. Sharon, Formosa, can you tell us about the history of Formosa, what we know about Formosa, what they've done in other communities, and why we know that this industry is going to be absolutely devastating to the environment around St. James Parish?
Well, from what I've been reading and hearing about the plant in Texas, how they were considered as serial offenders because of the damage they did to the water over there and the people in Fort Comfort in Texas. And I heard about what they did in Taiwan, that they killed a fish, and they did some other things that I heard about. But I know it's a bad thing, and I know the chemicals will kill us. That's why St. James can't take any more. But I've been reading about it as I go along.
So the water was contaminated in Texas and Taiwan, where large amounts of the fish population was killed. And what we know is that this is not only going to be a St. James Parish issue, that water also affects us. Yeah. We drink the same water, we breathe the same air. And so we need to stand up together. So we know Formosa has a horrible reputation globally. Yes. That's correct. Yes, all right. We're going to get to some questions here.
What's your name, sir? No. Mr. Stan.
I'm going to do them quick, because this sounds like collusion, it sounds like fraud, it sounds like a whole ton of things. So very quickly, have you thought about class action suit? Number one, have you investigated your council members who sold you out? It's obvious. And the class action suit also, very important. The other part of big business, and this is for everybody, and understanding big business don't care about you. Very important statement you said. Cancer has a 20-year incubation period. They counted on the fact that this stuff will not come to light for at least 20 years. They made their money and gone. That is very, 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 very serious there. Collusion, what was it? Collusion, the class action suit, and investigating, really investigating your council members. Because they were in it for the money themselves. They sold you out. The only way you're going to find out about it is finding out where their money is and how they got it. All right.
All right. Let's talk about class action suits. Have there been any class action suits that have been filed in St. John or St. James Parish? Either one of you.
St. John, we do have an ongoing class action lawsuit. We got that class action lawsuit because not as a way of fighting DuPont. Our direct action against DuPont that we knew we needed to take was an injunctive lawsuit. We needed to enjoin them. We needed to stop them until all this is settled. Stop doing what you're doing. If you don't know whether it's safe or not, let's stop and find out. So, but in order to do that, we would have needed a lot of money. But luckily, this law firm came along that would do the class action lawsuit would do the injunctive lawsuit for us if we joined them in a class action lawsuit. So yes, we have a class action lawsuit, but our intent and all our efforts are behind the injunctive lawsuit. So we're still, when the class action lawsuit, when all of these suits got to the federal level, the class action lawsuit was thrown out. But the injunctive lawsuit, the federal court is still planning to hear that, but they're very slow at it. So they had to take a different tack with the class action lawsuit. They're still doing that. But that's not where our fight is. Our fight is with the injunctive lawsuit. I hope that answers your question with regard to that.
Ms. Sharon, is there any class action lawsuits going on in St. James?
No, not yet.
Let's handle the next part of the question that I think was about investigating the council people. Have there been any attempt to investigate the council members and any corrupt action that they're taking in terms of what we know, what many of us are sure of, the money that's being handed under the table by these chemical industries to the council people? Have there been any investigation of them?
Well, we don't have any proof that there's money under the table. We have an idea. But our councilman said that we should get the FBI for St. James because they're so corrupt. That's how bad it is. They're really hiding things and they're doing undercover stuff. So.
Well, the chemical industry, the petrochemical industry is very powerful, and they do have means of hiding and protecting their sycophants. But sometimes there are ways we can tell who the real guys are. You know, we have guys, we have councilmen who, when we came up with a petition against the plant, one of our councilmen submitted a resolution to the council to vote against us on that. I think when a guy does something, then I found out that he didn't author that. I thought he had actually authored that. But I found out from his fellow councilman that he did not, that DuPont gave him that, and he submitted it. So I think that's evidence enough to us of collusion on the part of these guys. And it just so happens that right now, the incumbent councilman at large for Division is being opposed by this very same guy. So if I have to look at it and use my common sense and judgment, here's a guy sitting as a councilman, and he opposed the concerned citizens of St. John and worked in favor of DuPont. And now that his term is up, he is now challenging the only person we got on the council, that's working for the people. The guy that's challenging Larry Saraparu now is the very same guy who submitted that resolution on behalf of DuPont.
All right.
I'm hoping the people of St. John Parish that is listening to this, I'm trying to find a voice to tell them, please, let's use your common sense. The best thing that could happen for DuPont now is to kick Larry Saraparu. He is the thorn in their side in St. John the Baptist Parish. So it should be obvious to anybody, he's an incumbent. This guy had 2 terms, this councilman. He served his 2 terms. I think Larry deserves to serve his 2 terms. Why would who would want to oppose this man except DuPont? And I hope that the voters and the citizens in St. John the Baptist Parish are cognizant of this and are aware of what these industry people are doing and their lackeys.
All right, thank you, Mr. Taylor. And again, as someone stated in the audience, that the people need to know that we have the power to vote people out, that we put them in office and we can surely take them out just as quickly. And so when they need to be, that needs to be held up to people, the power of voting. And again, if we have just as a side note, we all know that we have an election coming up here, October the 12th. We had just beyond what everybody in this room to be registered to vote. If you are not registered to vote, get registered to vote. October 12th, make sure you vote. Make sure you're educated before you press that button so that you have studied and researched about each candidate so that you're not just pressing a button according to a good name that you like and sounds cute, all right? Be educated.
Thanks, Pastor. Brother Kone.
Thank you. As the previous gentleman indicated, it's so many questions, so many concerns, but so little time. So I'm going to do my best. How, both in St. James Parish and St. John Parish, how do you get the word out? Number one. Number two, since practically every family in those parishes is affected by those plants and maybe have lost loved ones, and I presume you have, reached out to ministers of various churches, because those parishes, as indicated previously, have a high percentage of African Americans. Most African Americans, their primary institutions in their lives are the churches. What are the responses of the ministers of those churches? Number three, have you all reached out to both the Louisiana Weekly, to my knowledge, the oldest African-American publication in the country, mind you, as well as any local parish African-American publication? Wish I had more time. I got about 10 more.
Well, in St. James, we're trying to reach out to the ministers, but it's kind of hard. Because a lot of the ministers in St. James, whenever they have their pastor anniversary, the politicians and local officials in the industry donate money for their anniversaries. So they can't speak up. So it's hard. But I do have a meeting with one of them Friday, and I'm hoping that he would listen. I usually call them on the phone, ask them to come, invite them to the meeting. One came one time, another one came another time, but they don't come all the time. When I call some of them, they tell me, okay, they're going to come, but they don't come. So sometimes we get our word out through Facebook. Sometimes I get on the phone and I call people. I'm the only one that's calling the people to tell them to come to the meetings and tell them what's going on. A lot of people don't know what's going on. They really don't know, because I know I didn't know until I started to do this and I started doing research. But so we use Facebook, I use the telephone, and sometimes I do a little, I do a flyer for church and ask the priest to read it. If it don't look like politics, he'll read it. So they say you can't put politics in the church. So, and we also had town hall meetings. We had forums, stuff like that. So it's mostly about word of mouth. And we get the word out to the people.
I know that that's one of our weaknesses in the concerned citizens in St. John, our ability to reach out to the local people. So we're searching for help and means to develop better ways. We usually print flyers, because we had meetings twice monthly for 3 years. And that is mainly the way we advertise. We're doing some social media things, but the bulk of our people, I think, we will reach directly, not through social media. I have failed to approach the Louisiana Weekly. I have failed to reach out to the Louisiana Weekly, and I really feel bad about that, because I have had a subscription just about all my life. When I moved away, I worked and lived in Los Angeles for about 20 years, but I got my Louisiana Weekly every week, as I do now. So I plan now to go down and visit with them and see how they can work with us on that.
New Orleans Tribune. Those are very good suggestions. Before we get to this next question over here, can you tell us about the last march and some highlights of the last march? Because people need to know that as we get on the road and as we march in St. John and St. James Parish, all the way up to Baton Rouge, that we are causing a stir, that we are getting noticed, that we are making the governor recognize that we're watching him and that we are citizens who voted him in, and we're not going to make it easy for him if he does not do something about the situation going on. So will you tell us about what were some of the highlights for you from the last march?
Well, some of the highlights for me were going to all the parishes on the riverfront and chanting and singing and marching. It was nice. And meeting people and talking to people. I enjoyed that. And I plan to do it again on the 16th through the 30th of this month. We're going to do the same thing, hopefully.
All right. For that first march in June, we were out on the road, and it was about 95 degrees. Marching on the road with people with canes and walkers, and I think our oldest marcher was 81 years old, maybe older, and eating sandwiches on the road and singing and shouting, stopping traffic, getting the police department's attention, sheriff's attention, letting them know. Went all the way to the governor's mansion and stood and shouted at him from his sidewalk, letting them know that we're here and we're not going away until you save Grandma and the baby. What was your highlight, Mr. Taylor, of the march in June?
It was the people that I met. The people who came out there on these asphalt highways between these sugarcane fields and petrochemical plants in 92 degrees heat. 100% humidity. And I saw the tenacity. We lost one of the soldiers. She died. She was there with her walker. The great reverend who I was proud to march with, who was there, and I got my courage from. People who came out there and made that kind of sacrifice for us, man. I really learned a good lesson in life during those 5 days. The beautiful people who were willing to join with us and stand before the Goliath. There were the David, and I saw so many. And I'm so grateful for them and the fact that we are now engaged in this. And I want to thank everyone.
Thank you.
Mr. Bryant, one.
Good evening, everybody. I don't we all just sitting around the fireplace talking. And I'm going to be down in St. John or St. James Parish this Saturday while they're voting. I'm going to be down there knocking on doors and telling people go vote and tell them to vote. They ain't got no transportation. We've done that many times, all through the years. That's not something we have to teach anybody how to do. And it needs to be done now. Another thing, we have a march to bring attention. Somehow this march doesn't have the drama. Ain't no drama. I don't feel no drama. We got to make some drama here, folks. Somebody got to want to do something. The government doesn't want to do Southern United Neighborhood. There's a tax deduction organization, so you can get credit on your income tax forgiveness. I don't know if anybody here wants to speak to Southern United Neighborhood. I think a representative is here, but they're a fine group. They do great accounting, and we're just happy to have the support. But you need to dig in your pocket and do like this person did, and give to get a check for I get it. Thank you. So that's my question.
All right. And it didn't.
I don't think it was a question.
Yeah, it wasn't, but that's all right. It was fine. Thank you. And if anybody, you never know until you put the word out. We are in need of a bus. We can rent a bus, but we'd rather have somebody donate a bus. And so I believe that there's somebody out there that knows somebody that's got a bus that's sitting in their church parking lot or somewhere else that they're willing to give us at a low cost or let us use even better. So please be on the lookout for that bus. And by all means, you cannot donate to a better cause than saving grandma and the baby. Amen?
So that check should be written out to 79 neighborhoods.
The next question was, is there anything we can do to help Mr. Sarakaru?
Yes.
Yes, I'm sure there is. I just left from a meeting with him where we did a live video in support of him. So whatever we can do coming up in this last week, we have a plan. And if there are people who want to help, I'll be able to sit down with you and let you see what our plans is and how you can expect it. We would certainly welcome that.
We do have the phone numbers of the registered voters there with a script if you'd like to hand them out to whoever wants to make phone calls from here in both parishes.
Okay, that'd be great. That'd be a big opportunity.
Thank you, Ms. Beth. The next statement says, look at DuPont and charge them with criminal negligence. Thank you, sir. We have some ministers in Justice and Beyond, like me, Reverend Barnwell. Would it help if one or two of you would like us to go with you?
What I'm saying is, when you call on clergy in different churches, if it would help for one or two of our clergy who are part of Justice and Beyond to join you, if that would be helpful, I think we could do that with you.
I certainly would welcome that in St. John. We have 65 identified churches in St. John the Baptist Parish. We have one church that's supporting us.
And Miss Sharon made the point that churches in St. James are concerned about donations being withdrawn from the pastor's anniversary. Is that the same? Is that the case as well as St. John?
Well, I know for a fact that the ministers are getting money from
Loudly, please.
So I know for a fact that you are getting money from the industry and from public officials.
They must have some anniversary celebration. My goodness.
Well, she's saying something that you know, I've been reticent to talk about that because it is too obvious. I mean, since Martin Luther King, we can trace it back. You can trace it back to when the black church was brought out by the government. Something called the Faith-Based Initiative. Yeah, you know. So, of course, blacks are accused of being democratic in their politics. But all of our black pastors are Republicans. What got them quiet, in my estimation, let's check and see why there are no black churches in any movement. Outside of the Poor People's Movement, where are the black churches? In St. John the Baptist Parish, we sent out a plea to the pastors on more than one occasion, and at most 3 showed up at one of the events and never came back afterwards. For the 3 years that we've been fighting this, there's been no Protestant. There's a local black Catholic church, Our Lady of Grace. That pastor has extended his arm out. He contacted me and told me that if he needed help, if we needed help from him, he would help us. But in terms of the 60 or so black churches, we have none other than the church where I am. They are not there. Over 3 years, over the fact that we cried and pleaded and kicked and shouted about them poisoning these children. I heard one of the candidates in this campaigning thing right here. I went to one of those. And one of the candidates stood up and made this great statement. He said, evil prevails when good men do nothing. Man, I wanted to talk to that guy. I mean, you know, yeah, he set the stage there for me. There are a number of things that really I'm fired up about. I want to talk to this guy. I want to talk to these ministers not in the state, in the United States, because that is the trend all over the country, to the point where we see a whole group of black ministers up there kowtowing with Trump. With Trump. But worse than that, the effect of it that it has, the pall that it has put on the black. The church has always been the center of the black community. So they knew in their fight against us the things they needed to do to really to tear down the black community. And if we don't know what enslavement is when you depend on somebody else for your sustenance, for your livelihood. See, so in our fight for integration in the 60s, I don't want to condemn anybody. We needed to be integrating the banks and the industries. We needed hospitals. We needed doctors. We don't have communities. We talk about a community is self-sufficient. We have some colored neighborhoods. And today we don't even have the few that we had back then. Right now there are no businesses in any black community. We had our own grocery stores. We had things like that during the 50s and 60s. I grew up with that. We do not have that now. There is no businesses in the black community in America. In America. There are foreigners. When the whites don't want to get their feet dirty in the black community, they bring in, we have Arabs, we have Indian people, we have all kind of people. If you go in the black community, you will not find any black businesses. None whatsoever. To me, that is slavery. We don't produce anything. And out of the $1.3 trillion that goes through the hands of black people in the United States, that money stays in the black community 6 hours. 6 hours. We are the poorest community. We are the oldest community. We built this country while they fed us chitlins for working 12 hours from sun up to sundown. And with so-called emancipation, they kicked us out on the street. And they created land banks and land grants for the poor Southern Europeans who they brought in here and filled up the land with. Wow, we never got that 40 acres and a mule that was promised us. And till today, to me, that is slavery. And that old song that Pat brought up, I hadn't been familiar with it, where the hook line in it was, before I be a slave, I'll be buried in my grave. And I need people to go home to be with my Lord, rather than be a slave. And black people need to stand up and defend themselves against these fake leaders who we elect. I don't care what color they are. When they bleed all of the finances out of the black community, if those leaders are not about getting us up off our knees out the dirt where we have been since we were brought here, how is it that when they emancipated us, so-called, we own 0.5% of the national wealth? In the year 2000, we did a survey, and black people in America own 0.5% of the nation's wealth. After 200 years, what is wrong with us? We should not lay down and accept slavery no matter how they describe it. If these politicians vying for office now to supposedly lead us, if they do not have an economic plan that's going to show us how they are going to empower us and free us, that's what freedom is.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. And to bring it all back, the land that was given, that was passed down from slaves to their ancestors who are living in that land at St. John and St. James right now, living on their ancestors' land that was given to them. Now these petrochemical industries want to come and bulldoze their houses and take their houses that were an inheritance to them from their slave ancestors. And above that, we know that these industries are even coming in and bulldozing cemeteries of our ancestors that have been buried. They're sacred grounds. And we as people need to stand up and say, you're not going to take our land now. You're not going to take the little bit that you gave us. We're not going to allow it. So this is the importance of the march. This is what we need to recognize, that if we are silent when this happens in St. John and St. James, it's also going to happen to us. And so we need somebody to speak for us as they need somebody to speak for them. And so we have to understand that the conditions and the surroundings of the environment is about a global environment and not just isolated to one part or component of our society. It's about our global environment being impacted and slowly killing each and every one of us. It's not a fast bullet, it's a slow bullet that moves through our collective body. Yes, Pat.
Is God dead?
God is not dead.
I mean, what's enslaved how long, Robert?
We just celebrated, or not celebrated, just remembered 400 years of the first slave.
The earth is about to go under. I remember the word. Sojourner Truth called out to Frederick Douglass in the church. She said, Frederick, is God dead?
Amen. So we're going to, Miss Sharon, Mr. Robert, thank you so much for your courage. Thank you for your just standing and taking a stand against the immorality and the sin that's going on. Thank you for always being present. And we appreciate you coming tonight. Know that we stand with you at Justice and Beyond. We're going to pray for you. We're going to uplift you. We're going to be on the road with you. And we pray that all of you here who have heard this story would dedicate at least a couple of days to be on this march. We're going to get a map to you. We're going to get a schedule to you. And you donate your resources, whether it be time, whether it be money, whatever you got. Donate to this march. It is a critical endeavor that we need to be a part of. Ben, you got a question?
Yeah, I just had a question quickly. You know, they're fighting for fully funded relocation for the folks in Gordon Plaza. These chemical companies, people may not remember, but these chemical companies could afford to relocate people. Has your community ever considered that as an option? And I mean, I don't think the company would do it, but
well, in St. James, I was told that one organization from Baton Rouge was talking to some of the people to try to get them to relocate. Lean. They were talking to some of the people to try to. Some people went around with a questionnaire or an application to fill out to see if they want to be relocated. And I'm on the other end fighting to keep us here. The people that I spoke with want me to fight to keep us here in St. James. And they're going behind our backs, behind my back, knowing what I was doing, try to get people to be bought out. So a lot of people called me and told me to fight. They're behind me. But I said, I need you to come and walk with me.
Yeah.
The ones that can't walk with me, they say they're going to stay home and pray. But the ones that can walk, I ask them to come and walk for the march. And I ask them to come to the church for the mass meeting. But the people that I talk to, they don't want to sell their homes. They want to stay in St. James.
Yeah. And
But it's hard to fight it, you know, when people behind your back talking another talk. They're making it look pretty and nice, thinking people are going to get gobs of money. A lot of them say they might get $1 million for their house. I say, I doubt that. I doubt that seriously. If I can't get $1 million, I know they can't get $1 million.
it's usually not enough to move, though.
Huh?
It's usually not enough to move.
It's not enough to move.
Pennies on the dollar.
Someone, they had about 3 or 4 people that sold their homes, and they say they wish they were back in St. James. They say it's not like St. James.
That's understandable.
And a lot of them have a house note. I don't have a house note, so I don't want to start all over with a house note.
Amen. Amen. And you can't buy freedom. Come on now. Well, Mr. Conan, one last comment or question?
I had questions earlier. I'm going to propose possible outreach solution. You all might have already looked into this, and maybe some of these you have not. But here goes. All of these entities I'm getting ready to mention, they all have environmental justice affiliations to these different organizations. Southern Poverty Law Center, American Civil Liberties Union, and every fraternity and sorority in this country, black sorority, black fraternities. I'm talking about Delta Sigma Theta, Alpha Phi Alpha, and on and on and on. So please consider reaching out to those various entities because they all have environmental sections to them, subcommittees to them. In terms of the fraternities and the sororities, they're bringing in the young people. So anyway, That's my 2 cents.
Thank you, Cody, because this is the part that we call for action about suggested action, and that kicks it off. We definitely need to get a hold of the fraternities and sororities and ask them to dedicate a day or a couple of days to get some of their present membership and alumni membership to be on the road with us. And
they got money.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, good suggestion. Thank you for that. Any other action, suggested action that you think that we need to
I
take?
just want to respond. These folks are so busy. I think the organizations you're talking about need to reach out to them.
Well, here's the issue.
No, hold on. We're going to discuss that. We have a Coalition Against Death Alley meeting every Saturday. And so we're on it, and we appreciate that comment. So we're on it, and we'll take that on. We're all a part of Coalition Against Death Alley. We are not going to wait for them. We're going to get on it.
Okay, and if you need contacts for any of these aforementioned, I can help provide contacts.
Thank you. All right. Thank you. Please. Thank you. All right. More action. Any other action that anybody suggests?
I know that Dr. Barber was in reserve, so I wonder what the connections are to make with the National Poor People's Campaign. I've worked some with the Poor People's Campaign in California, so I'd love to support with that. And then second of all, as Pat mentioned, we were looking at potential civil disobedience actions in the March in the summer. And so I'm wondering what can be offered, particularly by allies of the folks in St. James and St. John for potential civil disobedience. Because I think that would really draw attention and kind of force the issue and we decide that that's a practical attack.
On October the 23rd, Reverend Barber will be in St. James to help us to fight with the Formosa. And on the 30th, he's going to be in Baton Rouge at the state capitol with us to help us.
So what day is it going to be?
On the 23rd of October, that's a Wednesday.
The 23rd, louder, I'm going to echo Sharon a little bit louder. October 23rd and October 30th, Reverend Barber from the Poor People's Campaign will be with us in reserve and then in Baton Rouge. We're happy that the Poor People's Campaign has decided to join us and that they will bring further national attention to what's going on in St. John and St. James Parish, and not only to that, but also to other ways in which the conditions and surroundings have been threatened in our environment. And to your point, David, too, yeah, we need to cause that drama that Pat talked about. That gets the media's attention, gets them there and present. I'm interested in any suggested civil disobedience actions that we want to take or move towards. I believe God will bring it to us, what we need to do in order to bring that attention directly to our protests. Any other suggested actions? All right. Would you please give a hand for Ms. Sharon and Mr. Roberts? We applaud you. We thank you. We're with you, and we'll continue to support you.